Hello and welcome everybody to the Truth Lab. I'm your host, Alex Landry. Today is episode 15 and our special guest is Jim Gale. Jim, how are you doing today?
Well, Alex, thank you for asking and thank you for sharing this message, this vision with everybody listening and watching. I'm doing fantastic. We just moved into our family homestead about 4 weeks ago. It has been 20 years of pain and suffering and struggle and desperation that has now kind of transmuted into abundance and joy.
Wow, it must feel amazing. And
It does.
yeah, I love the background though. There's kind of a reflection of the scenery there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of saw your call of looking for a giraffe, man. Can you imagine?
Yeah. We want two giraffes. We want to rescue them from somewhere. You're right. Rescue might be a funny word, but our goal is not to grab giraffes out of Africa. It's to take some giraffes that are in the area that are looking for a better place to live, and we're going to create an environment for them to thrive. And anyway, we're learning.
That's amazing. I don't want to derail this, but it kind of gets me thinking about, I could share a video with you about kind of some of the history of Florida with elephants and mammoths and stuff, which is
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, there's a channel called Old World Florida. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, one of his videos kind of gets into that because we kind of know about the Ringling Museum and such and the circus, and I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, to look into stuff like that. But I think that's so cool. And I know at some point I'll visit your property. So just so you know, I first discovered you when you were on the High Wire with Mickey Willis.
Yeah. Del Bigtree. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Del Bigtree. Sorry, I got a little confused for a second because I'm going to be interviewing Mickey Willis right after this. But yeah, Del Bigtree and, I thought that was so cool. I'm like, here you are in Florida, and I am a permaculture practitioner, and obviously you are as well. So it was only a matter of time. And then our mutual friend, Corey, kind of encouraged me as well to reach out to you. So,
well, thank you. I'm very honored to be here and happy to share the message. It's so hopeful. I've never been more optimistic in my life. And I recognize the pain and suffering around the world. I recognize that all these things are happening because that's what I studied insanely, obsessively for years. And the bottom line is I've let all that go. I'm aware of it, but I know that the highest and best use of my energy is to build life into this land and to create a surplus and then share the surplus as powerfully as I possibly can.
yeah, exactly. I mean, for those who don't know, you're talking about permaculture, basically, the three core ethics. And so normally this is the Truth Lab. So I like to kind of hear the special guest's truth seeking journey. So how would you say your truth seeking journey began?
So the first time I had kind of a seed of enlightenment, right? Lightmente. I was 19 and somebody had said, Jim, come and join me in this network marketing company, right? And I'm like, sounds like fun, right? We could make billions of bucks in like 3 months and then go buy yachts. And so anyway, I got in, and on the way to Texas, we had one cassette tape series, and it was Dennis Waitley, The Psychology of Winning. And I listened to that. We listened to that there, and then there's these great speakers, and then we listened to that on the way back. When I got home at 19 years old, I was a different person because I became aware of things that I had not yet been aware of or exposed to in the indoctrination system that we call school. And so then I just really got partied and got drunk and just had a lot of fun for about 10 years. I lived in Hawaii, had a bar and a restaurant there, had a lot of fun. Then I wrote my goals again. Actually, right after I learned that stuff from Dennis Waitley, I wrote my goals for wrestling. and I wrote that I wanted to be a 4-time All-American and national champion, and it happened, and then it blew my mind. So then 10 years later, wrote my goals again, and ended up starting a company that did about 1.3 billion in revenue. I thought I really knew a lot of stuff, and there was an infinite amount I was ignorant about, right? So anyway, I sold the company, moved to Costa Rica, and this is where things really exploded. I was at a table in San Isidro with a bunch of expats, and I'll never forget the scene. There was an artist. My dad was a retired pipe fitter. Next to him was this teacher artist guy, a really nice guy. And then there's this barefoot guy who always got drunk and in trouble. And then there was a CIA agent retired, a New York cop retired, and a drug runner. And they were the best of friends, those three, right, at the end of the table. And I liked all of them. And anyway, the guys, they all said, Jim, 9/11 was an inside job. And I started laughing, and I said, you're effing crazy. There's no way that could have been an inside job, because too many people would have had to have been part of it, and nobody could keep a secret that big. I was so ignorant at that time. I did not know that JP Morgan and crew had already bought all of the media. I didn't know about compartmentalization. I didn't know any of that. So that was my big wake up when I went and watched Zeitgeist. And my whole mind exploded because I recognized the truth in it. And that's when I started asking questions.
That's amazing, man. It's interesting because I feel like 9/11 was a big catalyst of awakening for a lot of people. And I saw Zeitgeist as well, too. So
yeah. Building 7, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I did interview Catherine Austin Fitz before, and it's kind of related, not really, but when you look into things like sometimes, we can make so many connections when we know how interconnected everything is. So like when you look at Donald Rumsfeld, he was involved when JFK was trying to get the American Zionist organization to register as a foreign agent. And, and then Donald Rumsfeld ended up becoming, Secretary of Defense. And then it was the day before September 11th, he announced like a few $1 trillion were missing. And guess where they were auditing it? Building 7.
Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah. He said, we have an enemy closer to home. The Pentagon cannot account for $2.3 trillion in the last fiscal year.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But I bring up Catherine just because, she was involved. She was like a secretary at HUD or something like that. And she started noticing things were funny with the money. And, here we are. And, she's been a great whistleblower, I will say, about, she calls them like digital concentration camps, where I think it's going to have to be a wake-up call for people. It's like, do we want more freedom or do we want more control?
That's it.
Enslavement and such.
She's a champion. Exactly. And it's up to us. It's not up to the government to fix the government. It's never happened before, right? Well, maybe in bits and pieces, but here we are. So it's up to the people. There's only one way that we will overcome mass extinction and deforestation and cancer and diabetes and heart disease trends. It's when enough people organize effectively, like Dr. Martin Luther King said, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. When we do that around the idea whose time has come, stronger than all the armies of the world, creating the new model, boom, that's the only way we win this war or this game, whatever perspective.
Yeah, it kind of gets me thinking, have you looked into the Maharishi effect? Have you heard of that? Or people meditating and how there's data that a bunch of people, even not that many, but can lower crime in an area and stuff.
Yeah. That study done in Washington, D.C., when the head meditator guy said to the police chief, we are going to reduce crime by like 25% over the next 6 months. And the police chief said there'd have to be 12 inches of snow on the ground all summer long for that to happen. But yet it happened.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
It is. So I appreciate you sharing, your truth seeking journey. I'm sure you've seen the movie Thrive before.
Loved it. Yes.
Yeah, so Thrive kind of emphasizes the importance of worldview.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your worldview?
Man, that's a great question. So, there's a science called neurolinguistic programming or neuroassociative conditioning. It's how the mind works. So I started studying this back when I was like 30, and what I learned it from different perspectives. So in neurolinguistics, first perspective is me in here looking out. That's my first perspective. My second perspective would be imagining I'm the other person looking back. And a third perspective would be imagining you're kind of a little bit away looking at the conversation from that perspective. I've been intentionally taking this thing that I call fourth perspective now, where it's a worldview. It's like, how do we give the earth a hug? Like, what is the one thing that the trigger of which mass adoption would lead to peace on earth? And it's real simple. It's consciousness, it's nature, it's combining what we already know in such a way where it helps catalyze a shift that leads to mass adoption. Right? Anyway, that's kind of a long answer, but that's
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, do you have like mainstream views? Like, is your worldview like the heliocentric model? Uh, the Earth is the third planet from the sun.
yes.
Like, is that what you subscribe to?
Thank you. That's a whole nother. I love this. I think that we're in a holographic universe. That this is literally, there's so many different ways to say the same thing, whether we are intentionally in the mind of God, part of a simulation, right? So I think that there could be so many different versions of this. I think that we're playing a game in the mind of God is my kind of view of what's happening.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess because what I'm saying is like the mainstream view is like the Big Bang.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's kind of that, and I mean, it's kind of interesting because, in my opinion, sometimes people don't always question things. You talk about the indoctrination camps, and it's like, well, all of us were subjugated to it, right? When we couldn't really develop critical thinking, that we went to the moon and all this other things that, sometimes, some people, they're not able to think differently,
Yeah, Alex, I love this. This is so much fun. I've never been asked and had these conversations, but I have thought about this stuff. And I have a question for anybody who believes in the theory that has been taught in schools. Okay, so if the Earth and the whole system is flying through space and everything's spinning around each other, how is it that our stars are in the same exact spot for thousands of years? That's ridiculously impossible. It's literally impossible by the second, according to the model that we've been taught in school. So by the thousands of years, the whole thing's a deception.
I love that. I mean, there's so much to it, because at the end of the day, sometimes it's just explaining, like, whoever's making a claim has a burden of proof. And then sometimes when you try to verify, that's when things kind of fall apart. And sometimes what is on the surface appearing to be science is actually pseudoscience, or it's like a religion, kind of,
Yeah, it's a divine deception. There's just, this whole thing is built, there's deception everywhere. And you just said something so profound. It's burden of proof, right? What I'm claiming to be the solution to all of the world's biggest problems is that when we grow food instead of lawns, then by the simple act of tending to this system, stewarding this system, as opposed to a lawn, mass adoption of that one thing will literally create peace on earth. And we can say it from every different perspective. So that's my burden of proof, is to live what I'm claiming to be true.
I love that. So here, let's backtrack. So when
Okay.
you first met Corey,
Yeah,
because Corey introduced the Jones plantation to me.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah, so didn't he, was it near you where that he did like a showing of it or something? Does that ring?
At Galt's. It was here at Galt's.
Yeah,
And
so
he did another one as well.
yeah, so I mean, I gotta really give kudos to him because I try to move quickly, you know. So when he shared it with me, I went straight to the YouTube version and then I watched the full feature film and then I read Larkin's book that it's based on, The Most Dangerous Superstition. And, you know, I've even reached out to him to like interview him. And, you know, he's funny. I don't want to say anything weird, but he kind of has like a Trump derangement syndrome or something, you know. And it's like I'm very critical of Trump, you know, as well.
Me
So
too.
it's yeah, so it's kind of interesting, you know. It's weird how some people can be, you know, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because for anybody
Yeah.
interested in like what we're talking about, it's kind of the intersection between permaculture and volunteerism.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of come back to Thrive because all of Foster Gamble's life work and research has concluded with him writing a book on stateless societies and how we could transition into that. And
Yeah.
so obviously what you're saying, I mean, we know it. I mean, you don't got to convince me. I don't have to convince you. It's almost so obvious. All we can do is imagine we're in the future,
Yeah.
looking back and laughing, being like, why did it take this long?
Or just laughing now, right? And going, oh my God, what a game that we're in. As soon as we start laughing on a regular basis, our mind becomes more clear and more able to think of solutions. And then when we see and hear the solution, it hits like boom, right? So that's what our whole thing is let's find multiple ways to say the same thing. And then let's ask the question, how do we get to the masses? Right? That's what I've been asking obsessively. And as a result of that, now we've got a TV show that just got funded that is incredible, and it speaks to the exact process of how we do that. And then a feature film coming out this summer that is intended to change the world, and I'm certain it will, because it lays out exactly how we go as a global society, where we are now, to complete abundance everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I like to say I'm can be delusionally optimistic, where I the abundance is already happening. It's kind of like we just align
Yeah,
with it because anyone who's really passionate about growing food,
yeah,
it's like every time you're eating certain foods, if it came from a plant, they're seeds, and it's like it's abundance, you know, because in that moment it's infinite, you know, and like, but nature humbles us because it's not instant gratification. It's only people who have been conditioned into consumerism that like want that instant gratification that don't realize that we have everything we need right now and we
we do.
always have and tuning into that abundance, you know. And just like you mentioned, I mean, I lived in Hawaii and anyone who lives out there, sometimes it's like this is it, like you're living in paradise, it's amazing. You know, I will say during COVID I kind of felt like Florida was a little more, you know, free. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm restricting people out there from going to the beach and stuff. I mean, it happened
Oh,
here too, but not for as long, you know.
yeah.
But how long were you in Hawaii?
4 years.
4 years?
I was 25 to 29, and I loved it. It was amazing. But that government there is just radical, and it's like a military base. The whole thing is a strategic location. So that's why the U.S. government and has created such corruption there.
Yeah, well, here, let's also, I'm just remembering what you said about the stars, you know, because it's
Yeah,
important. Because remember, I mean, we love nature, but, you know, it's all connected.
yeah.
And so, have you been to Coral Castle? Have you looked into that? Because,
Is that the one down in Florida, southern?
well, what's amazing, Jim, it's in Homestead, which is the mecca for tropical fruit. So, I did an advanced permaculture design course in Homestead with Eric Tolzenmeyer.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because I had already spent some time in Homestead going to Coral Castle. So I bring it up because there's a Polaris telescope there. which kind of, is like what you were saying, where, Coral Castle's been there for 100 years. And so when you look through it, it's the North Star and like
Yeah.
everything's moving around it, kind of like what you were saying. But I know at some point this will happen. My guest last night, Justin Harvey, he's not far from you in
Oh,
Orlando.
Justin's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of was telling him, even with Old World Florida, I'm like, we need to do some type of like health uh, retreat in Coral Castle because we combine doing like a meditation there. Because I've been to Coral Castle 10 times. A lot of it's kind of studying it, because there's a lot of like symbology encoded into it. But then
Wow.
we found out that people were meditating for world peace at different megalithic structures and using the megalithic structures to try to like amplify it. So it'd be the
That's
idea.
cool.
Yeah, we, just I'm just putting it out there because it's a combination of Coral Castle retreat, do this meditation, but then also hit up some of the tropical, fruit farms. And there's Robert
Yes.
is Here, which is like, if you haven't heard of Robert is Here, it's like the Disney World of farmer markets. And that's what got me hooked into tropical fruit. So literally, after I experienced all of this in Homestead,
Yeah.
I relocated to Kauai within like 3 months
Wow.
because I was saving seeds. I was tasting these fruits and I had such profound experiences. And I like these seeds are so valuable. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, a lot of these, seeds are now trees that are over a decade old living in Kauai. Because I don't want to go on, but I had so much serendipity, synchronicity when I went out there. Permaculture brought me out there. And then next thing I know, I connect with a group that they've been working on a permaculture food forest for like 5 years, getting the land, the lease, the design. And then all of a sudden they're ready to install it. So like I got to be with like 100+ people
That's awesome.
installing a food forest out there. And it's
Wow.
now, the Kauai food forest, there's like a YouTube videos about it and everything, but it's amazing. So, I mean, everyone gets it because as soon as you have one, guess what? There is no work because the work is propagating. So then you share the abundance.
Exactly. It's like this major free energy system that keeps giving more and more and more. I love this.
Yeah. And it's the complete opposite of scarcity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we all know scarcity and fear is kind of somewhat, I mean, one could argue it's the absence of love and abundance, but that's why I talk about things like worldview, because something that I like to share, maybe you've reflected on, it's the idea that the map is not the territory. So like we could have the most accurate map of reality, but reality is reality. So it's kind of like, how can our perception of reality be reality?
Yeah.
We're living in a world where it's crazy sometimes how people, are living in different universes, it seems like.
Exactly. This is like a projector, right? Everything is happening in here, all the chemicals and all the stuff, but yet we see it happening out there. It's just tremendous. There's one of the most profound deductions of any writing I've ever read was when Napoleon Hill wrote, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." And I've been playing with that a lot. Like, what can I conceive and believe? What can you conceive and believe? Well, then let's achieve that because that's pretty cool.
Well, where I'm at, and I think you are too, is like when we manifest individually, eventually it becomes how do we work together? Because I am because we are, I mean, at the end of it, we are interdependent. And there's kind of like, as we go from maturity, we were all infants where we were dependent, on our family, our parents, and then we develop independence. But from there, it's about synergy and interdependence, So that's where we are, man. And it's a balance of like aligning with the abundance, but then we also kind of have to make it happen, man. Because when I was in Hawaii, man, there was times I'm like, I felt selfish because I'm like, this is it. Like life is so beautiful and amazing, but then why is there poverty? Why is there crime? Why is there hunger?
Right. and how much shame and humiliation and rage and pride can I feel that would make somebody else feel better? Right? None. Not at all. What our duties are is to live our I mean, the permaculture ethics are just fantastic. To live our highest and best life, to create as much energy as we joyfully would like to voluntarily create, and share the surplus, right? The ethics are people care, earth care, and reinvesting surplus to people care and earth care. And what the ultimate abundance is people, when the more we serve, right? People are reciprocal by our very nature. So the more we serve, the more people would like to serve us back. We just had some amazing folks bring us 7 ducks today. And these ducks are amazing. They're these big Muscovy ducks, 2 egg layers and 5 males. And anyway, that's what's happening is we're taking the fiat economy out of it, and we're just going direct again.
That's amazing. So do you feel like it's been easy with conscious community, like where you are? Because of course, this is the balance of things where there is a value to privacy, but then there's also like how we're interconnected. And it's kind of like, how do we live in a community where there's privacy, but then there's also synergy, you know?
Those are beautiful questions. So our family homestead is on 1.1 acres. And we have basically 10 home sites. We've got about 11 homes here now, 4 tiny homes, and then a 2-bedroom, 2 4-bedrooms, and a 5-bedroom. So my point with that is our family homestead is our private family space. And as soon as we go out into the food forest in that area, that's more of a public space. So everybody has their own space, and then we have our common area land. That's the way it's feeling really good.
Yeah, well, we don't have to get too much into this, but I do get curious with like the land near you. You know what I mean? Like if there's ever a goal of like, because sometimes it's like if you don't own that land or you don't know the person who owns it, then who knows what is going to go on there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So we're in a very unique place. We're on happens to be like a private 430-acre lake.
I saw you fishing in the invite for that.
Yeah.
Bring some fruit trees, right? Bring some fruit trees and go fishing.
Exactly. I'm happy to this is an amazing fishing lake, and it's a private lake, so we're the only ones out in there, and usually almost every time. And if you want to bring me a couple fruit trees, I'll take you fishing.
That's amazing, man.
Right. Yeah. And so anyway, we're at the end of a road now. And for people who don't have this kind of situation, just make your boundaries clear. Like if you want a little living fence or any kind of fence or whatever, like my partner here, his family, they don't want to have tourists wandering around, and they don't want to, and I get that. I don't really either. Right. So they're putting up this fence, and then we're going to turn that fence into a dragon fruit trellis and a passion fruit trellis and a grape trellis.
I mean, for those who don't know, in permaculture, the edge is like where all the magic happens.
Yes.
I mean, you're living such a great model. I mean, it's basically a vision I have, because I can only imagine what it's like for your kids, because imagine when you were a kid, if this was your reality, but then you think about their grandkids, you know what I mean? Because that's what it's all about. And then I don't have to tell you, anyone who's a parent, it's like, it's an interesting thing where you want time to slow down. You know what I mean? Your kids grow up too fast. And that's why we learn like nature's wise. Like, that's why I do believe, I mean, we don't need to get into it, but when I talk about worldview, I somewhat subscribe to a worldview that's like a clock, like it's all a clock and we're aligned with it, and our clocks match the sky clock, so it's like, how do we sync up with it? But in my opinion, that's a little more of a coherent model than like what we were taught in the indoctrination.
No, that's for sure.
And
man,
so yeah, it's only a matter of time. So I do get curious. I mean, obviously we're both very passionate about growing food. So what have you learned about somewhat tropical species? Like, for example, top on my list is I've been trying to get an abiu tree. That's one of my favorite tropical fruits. I am curious, what's your favorite tropical fruit, or what's an unusual, rare, exotic fruit?
Well, my favorite is mangosteen is probably right near the top of the list. I love lychee. We have lots of lychee here. And I love guavas. Man, I honestly can't think of many fruits I don't love.
Well, you're probably like me. I don't know if you've seen the Fruit Hunters. Have you ever seen that? So that's amazing because it's kind of like, and it's funny to bring this up because Justin brought it up. He talked about the Truman Show.
Yeah.
When Truman was young, he's like, I want to be an explorer like Magellan. But then it just crushes that curiosity and was like, you're in the wrong time. It's already been discovered. So the idea about fruit hunters is that there's still fruit out there, like kind of waiting to be discovered. And I don't know if you heard of Luther Burbank before.
I have not.
Oh man, you're gonna love him. So he's one of my heroes. I visited his research farm. He's no longer with us, but allegedly he contributed like 800 unique species of plants through his hybrids. And
wow.
He would combine like technical knowledge with love. So allegedly he developed like the first spineless cactus, and he claimed he convinced it to not be afraid. And so Luther Burbank was like a wizard, but he developed like, he would combine a plum and an apricot. So I could go on, but that's like a whole nother avenue of abundance. I mean, just like we know there's hundreds and maybe thousands of species of mango and avocado. And that's where like a vision that I've had, that I'm sure you have, it's like seed banks everywhere.
Yes.
Where like
every food forest is a seed bank, and we want more of them.
Exactly. But I guess what I'm saying, like the other day I got excited buying the biggest watermelon that I could buy. And of course I wanted it to be full of seeds.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed it, like saving all the seeds and then cleaning them and drying them. And, so that's all I'm saying too with a seed bank, because Kauai luckily had a great seed bank that I would volunteer at. And I realized that some of, it's all a skill to sometimes grow a plant, not just for food, but to let it go to seed and then to clean the seeds and all of that and store them correctly. So then,
man, that's awesome, Alex. So what we're doing right now, we've got a bunch of different businesses coming together on the property. And one of them is Eric Heinzelman is growing mushrooms here. He's growing lion's mane and all these different kinds of mushrooms. And he's making powder that I have every day, and I love it. And anyway, so we're mixing the spent mushroom blocks with another team. David and Renee are coming in, and they're teaching us about worms and the best way to grow worms and create worm castings and a worm farm business. And then we're combining the mushroom blocks and the worms and the compost, and we're making good soil. And then we're using that good soil as our germination center, all inside this kind of steel frame building that we built and designed specifically to have multiple functions like this.
That's amazing. I mean, so I did a farm business management course through Kauai Community College. And so I was trained to not plant things without having customers, or the idea of like a purchase order, so obviously part of what I do is a love for my fruit tree collection and everything. But I'm just saying, this is what it really comes down to. Sometimes it's like, well, what's the plan with the mushrooms? Like, is it going to be a website? Are there restaurants? Is there a store? You get what I'm saying? And
I do completely. So I think the best place to store is in the ground, in a tree, right? Or in a bush, or and so what we're doing here, we've got these 5-6 acres in the middle, and we're basically creating a food forest nursery that will be used as a propagation station, and then everything that's produced out of there goes out into the community around us.
That's amazing.
Because why not, right? And let's change the world.
Yeah, man, it's gonna happen at some point. There's a meetup and stuff. I know Corey's invited me. It's just sometimes with scheduling and everything.
Yeah,
it's definitely gonna happen.
Well, I'm looking forward to your visit, man. And lots to do. We could do some videos here and just talk strategy. how do we change the world? And ask that question with a really sincere tone, and then allow all of the details and answers to come in. It's like a puzzle, like a 5D puzzle coming together.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, and it's interesting because we create reality, and there's a lot of responsibility with that, and the idea of like backwards planning, like envisioning the outcome accomplished,
Yeah.
and then reverse engineering like to now and being like, okay, but because what's funny is the universe like steps in, so that's why action is always what's needed because things never really go according to plan.
Yeah.
But the idea is they go better, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like if we don't take action, then nothing happens.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, speaking of that, there's so many things coming together right now that are incredibly exciting. We're building a school here where, as a result of the parents sending their kids to this school, all of their food needs will be met. And it's going to be like 12 to 15 kids. And it's going to be the same price as a normal school because $8,000 per year follows the student. So the teachers will make really good money. 15% will go to renting the space and the land and the building. And then the students will be little entrepreneurs running the nursery, planting seeds, harvesting, taking care of the chickens and the bees and all of it. And then they'll be selling and giving the yield that they create back to their families, right? And it's all open source. So this model creates better teacher pay. The families get a massive ROI. The kids learn how to steward the land and be self-reliant and do business, all while there's massive abundance being created.
Yeah, and obviously for this model to work and to go other places, it's like, well, the families have to kind of live near the school, kind of like how the system is set up. Like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. But, exactly. And the school, I mean, to get 12, 15 kids in this area, that won't be a problem. Especially because they don't have to pay a lot of extra money. Maybe $200 a month extra at the beginning, but then very soon it'll turn into a value system where the food is coming out that is worth over $1,000 a month.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know, because I think when you were saying about the company and stuff, you were doing mortgages, or what were you doing?
Yeah.
Because I'm a realtor. So, it's interesting because I've been a permaculture designer since 2012. And then I got my real estate license to really kind of be, more full stacked because, for example, I was living in St. Pete. I'm sure you've been there.
Yeah, love it.
There's a farm there, and I actually lived there. It was called the St. Pete Eco Village. So I've experimented trying to live in community. Like I've kind of preferred helping farm owners with like vetting programs for their labor because it's called woofing.
Yeah.
But the problem is woofing, sometimes you gotta like vet people properly, to make sure that their vision is kind of in alignment and goals, and because all of it just can save time and even money. So I've never really had to woof. I've worked more closely with like the landowner or the farm owner with like the vetting. But anyway, so at the St. Pete Eco Village, I was part of something called SUAC, which was the Sustainable Urban Agriculture Coalition. Back when I first visited it, it wasn't the Eco Village yet.
Right.
Hawaii. And, I was living very, private in Kauai for a while, and it was great. But then I lived in community, and it really taught me a lot, and kind of I've told Corey, just looking out for him like a brother. It's like everything kind of comes down to communication and conflict resolution and, people that heal their trauma. Because like what you said, I mean, all of us go through trauma, but it's the idea of how do we go from traumatized to self-actualized and so it's interesting because when people live in community, that's when you learn about things like psychological projection and all of this. But anyway, so St. Pete taught me a lot because when I first moved there at that eco village, we had 60 chickens, but then somehow right around that time, the city, started fining saying like a farm's not allowed in the city, and what makes it a farm is livestock, and so then we're going
Oh,
to meetings, and so that's when
yeah,
I started understanding zoning, and
yeah,
obviously with you being a developer, I mean you get it, but for me that's kind of why I became a real estate agent, and I
yeah.
have sold like permaculture inspired properties, and obviously in a
Mhm.
world that's what I would do,
Yeah.
but for now it's like I get a lot of purpose helping people, sell and buy, but the bigger vision is like, I do have clients that love plants, and I'll gift them plants I grew from seed or cuttings, and that's when I know, everything's in alignment. But as you know, it's like I've kind of had the vision for a while, and I spin my wheels of like what to really do, because it's about what people want when it comes to retrofitting neighborhoods to be, permaculture. And I've even tried to infiltrate government at local levels, the urban forestry department, like, how do we do stuff like
Well, let's
like
talk
an
about
uphill battle?
like, yeah, this infiltrating government. Well, so we declared that we were free maybe 4 years ago, and about 20 months ago, the house was just a frame. It was a steel metal frame, and a government official was standing in front of the house asking to see building permits. And we didn't ask for permission to build this. We don't pay taxes on our land publicly. I've said this on hundreds of podcasts and radio shows, and the facts are we will not pay by the threat of violence taxes on land or labor. And we're not going to ask for permission from an agency that has failed to represent, that is demonstrably unethical and destroying our world. So anyway, this guy shows up, and I walk over and I turn on my camera and I walk up to the fella and I said, "My name is Jim Gale, and I'm recording this conversation." And he said, "My name's Alexi." I said, "Well, it's nice to meet you, Alexi, but how did you get permission to come on this land? Implied consent is not granted, and it's posted." And I expected him to puff up and say, "I'm from the government," right? And which is both lawfully and legally not justified for him. So anyway, he said, "I'm sorry, the gate was open, so I came in, but I will leave if you want me to." I said, "Well, maybe, but before you leave, can I show you what we're doing here?" And he said, "Sure." I like this guy, actually. Anyway, he comes walking into the food forest, and I said, "It is our duty to everything we love about this world, to our posterity, and to life itself on earth, to be the stewards and protectors of this land." And he had this little clipboard with a paper with white boxes and check marks. And I said, "If we follow your agency, then we're dead. Then the whole world is dead, as proven by every HOA community that you've approved with your little check marks, where now you took a jungle and it's now a parking lot or a lawn with poisons literally added by contract with poison companies." I said, if that's the way, there's no birds, there's no life, the people are sick, the land is sick, you're going to kill us. So we have to do it another way." And he got tears in his eyes and he said, "You're right. I will never bother you again."
Wow. Well, did you green belt, or what do you mean? Like,
No, I just don't. I just will not pay it.
really?
All contracts that are executed under duress, under the threat of force and violence, or from a minor, or when you don't know what you're doing, are invalid. So
Yeah.
this whole thing, this whole system is invalid, and I'm calling it out. And I'm at the same time I'm calling it out, I'm offering a better way voluntarily.
Wow, man. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know how many people do that. And
A
because
few.
there's green belting where you can reduce your property taxes if you're doing bona fide
Yeah.
agriculture. Um,
Yeah.
but if there's no repercussions, I mean, they're not trying to take your property.
I'm inviting them very publicly to do better, and this is my stand, and I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
It's
And
almost like that in and of itself, Jim, may be one of the most powerful messages. You know what I mean? Because think about it. I mean, I wish everybody could just pay attention. That's what I joke about. Knowledge isn't free. You have to pay attention, be focused. But when your message is so powerful because it's not your words, it's this is your reality,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
power. But on one hand, it's like I don't want anything to happen to you. It's like I kind of knew about this, but it's something else to kind of hear it from you. And
Yeah.
because I think I heard you at some point, share that story before about the man tearing up. But it's just powerful because, people hear things like DeSantis is saying, oh, no property tax or reduce them. But this is just very powerful. And I got to give, credit where credit's due, man, because it takes a lot of courage and and to even be like what you're doing where it's like you're just demonstrating a better way because when you talk about the schools it's like the whole thing is stupid because if we could actually account for where the property tax money is going because it's kind of like DeSantis
Yeah.
made a comment like you buy a TV you pay sales tax it's done. Why when you buy a house every year and then it's kind of like, where it's always justified
It's a scam.
the fire stations, but it's like, what really was the cost of the school? And if you're collecting all of this property tax, what do you do with the surplus money? We all know the question of that. Just like when people really look into taxes or the Jones plantation, it's not taxes funding the government, it's money's just being printed.
Yeah.
And, but then here we are, we're still kind of involved. Like you said, your school, I mean, you still got to use the fiat for the teachers and the
Yeah.
parents have to earn it to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's why, if anything, it's just about transition kind of like how the world's supposed to be, but how it is and how we can transition
How
into
it can be. How it
exactly.
can be. You mentioned earlier about courage, and I've felt courage. Like I used to go cliff jumping, and I was scared shitless, and then I would jump off the cliff and I'd land in the water, and I felt pretty courageous at that time. I don't feel any of that now. I feel presence. I am not scared at all of government, of any of it at all. People say, Jim, you're not scared. I'm not. I just let go of that because it's an illusion. And people say, what about scared of a rattlesnake? No, I'm not scared of a rattlesnake. I'm not going to pet a rattlesnake, but I'm not scared of it. Right. So this idea of fear, false evidence appearing real, right, is a fun little acronym. I've let that go. And that is the ultimate freedom. So whatever happens from here on out, I'm serving to my feeling. What I feel is that I'm of service to God, to nature, to my family, to my kids, to community, to society. And I'm living really well. Like I'm so thankful for everything around. It's mind blowing. So I think that when we give up the fear that is a program by governmente, that's the first step in freedom.
Yeah, well, as we know, that's what government in Latin means, right? Mind control. And you can't control people who are empowered and excelling, right? It's like government only works when people are dependent on it. And it's not just financial dependence, because think about what we learned during COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, so it was really exciting, though, with Justin, because I know he's on a very similar
Yeah.
wavelength. And the idea of what could happen maybe for Florida with getting fluoride out of the water and maybe
Yeah.
people awakening,
Yep.
or
Oh,
what?
I love what Justin and Jill, Kylie and Scott, and all these folks that are getting together to expose the harms of the poisons. And I mean, that's it. It's like all of us, you with what you're doing, every one of us has got a kind of a role to play. And let's just play the role to the best of our ability and have fun doing it. And everybody wins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we still have a little bit of time here. Is there any
Yeah.
particular topics you'd like to cover or any
Yeah.
messages? I mean, I really enjoying this, because I don't always have guests that are not just into permaculture, but really exemplifying it.
A permanent culture, right? So I have a couple things. I want to show you something. So we've got a little bit of construction left to do on the house, but right here, this is our septic system, those white pipes. Underneath that is basically this little area here, about maybe 10 feet by 6 feet, excuse me, is our septic tank. And it's got multiple chambers. And the old septic tank is all the way from the wood all the way to here. So this takes up, I'd say, less than 10%, maybe 10% of the space of that other system. And it has the pipes over there. The byproduct of our septic system is plant food. It uses a living microbiome and air to create the perfect environment for rapid decomposition of shit. And it does the job infinitely better, and it's half the price. So why am I saying this? Because this system right here is not permitted yet in the United States. We're going to test what comes out of ours to prove it's already permitted in multiple countries. But what our mission is to find the best products on the market, prove they work, because we don't have to go through permitting here. And then without any NDAs or patents or non-competes or any of that, I don't do any of that bullshit. It's everything is open source. And so, and some of these people do have, like, somebody has an IP on that, but it's half the price and uses 10% of the land. So good, make some money. People should make money if they want to make money, right? And then use it wisely. So that's one product that I want to shine a light on. If anybody is building a house and they want a septic system that's fantastic, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with Jaime and Gracie, who are the Colombian inventors and manufacturers of this system, who now live right up the road.
That's incredible. Are they like you, where they have the system installed and no permit? I mean,
no. So they live on the edge of an HOA community in a community that is regulated by the government. And when they came here and heard what we were doing, they got so excited. They sent me 2 of those systems on an airplane, and one's above ground so people can see it. The other one's below ground. We also have a steel frame 8 by 24 foot structure that is made of like cold form 3D printed steel. It is super strong, and it's going to have 3 sections: the mushroom section, the worm composting section, a plant start section, and actually a prep section. If anybody wants like a greenhouse frame that can be used for multiple things, hyper functional with water catchment and everything, then we also have that product, which we are giving to the world, basically.
yeah, well, I'm super interested. I think that's so innovative and cool. And so now I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, how do you integrate with the broader community, because sometimes, when people are on a wavelength of looking for land, to live off grid or live close to off grid, in my opinion, it's so important to still kind of be close to a great community, and I hate to say it, but it's like, if we're not friends with the government, then we're not involved in the decision making. And so, the idea, in my opinion, is to kind of, do what you're doing, but then still be close to like an area where you can know the mayor or certain, or try to infiltrate it. And,
There's a guy named Rowdy Meyer, aka Tag. He is, from my perspective, as a failed developer in both Nicaragua and Costa Rica, he is the most successful developer probably in the whole United States right now. And he is developing land. His HOA is Don't Be a Dick. And he's now got over 2,000 acres that he has basically invited people to live around him. And then they've created this incredible voluntary community where they've got all of these people doing different things. Somebody loves doing accounting. Somebody loves doing internet. Somebody is going to do a library. Other people love chickens and ducks and growing food and cows. And what they've done is they've created this community where they're going into the local government and they're videoing and they're chasing all the scumbags out of government because they can't get away with shit anymore. And his channel is called Life Done Free. So I'm learning from him. Joel Salatin's another one of our really deep collaborators. I'm learning from him. I'm basically learning from all these people and then doing our best to integrate what we learn right here.
That's amazing, and it very humble of you to say. So you kind of hinted you were a failed developer in Costa
Oh yeah,
Rica.
yeah.
Well,
Radically
our
failed in
best
Costa Rica.
learning is our mistakes.
No shit.
The indoctrination camp kind of conditions people to avoid mistakes. So guess what?
Oh yeah.
They never take a risk. They never learn.
Yeah.
And they
That.
next
Yeah.
thing you know, their life is unfortunately over.
Oh, totally. You know,
So
people ask what got me here: failure and desperation.
yeah, well, I mean, obviously you're not a failed developer. I mean, everything you've learned and here you are, but I get it because I kind of have these aspirations, but then I start it's one thing to try to work with a group to develop a master plan community that's based on permaculture. It's something else to market it and educate people because
Yeah.
remember, like I was telling Justin, as we know, it's impossible to inform people who
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
informed, but then I do feel like there's statistics. Some of the best are homeschooling. So I think
Yeah.
you're obviously onto something because I don't know the latest numbers. Maybe you do of like how many people homeschooled in 2024 compared to 2014. You get what I'm saying? Or what's
I
going
do. I know that it went way up. And that's so the trends are good, right? I didn't mess up my camera by switching it, did I?
No, yep.
Okay,
If
because it
anything,
was.
if anything, there's more space now.
Oh, good, because it was Kitty Wampus, and I was having to hold it. And I don't like touching this thing for too long if I can help it.
Yeah.
So I know the trends in so many ways are in the right direction. And if we follow all of the kind of conspiracy world talk, we might not see all the good stuff, right? It's really important to keep in mind that there's a lot of good stuff happening too as we decentralize the power structures.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad you chose Florida because sometimes when people are looking into, living off grid or homesteading, Florida is to sometimes be avoided. I mean, for me, I just get so much happiness from tropical fruits that and I do obviously love Hawaii, but at least where I'm at, Tampa Bay, I mean, it's pretty amazing. There's so many, people here. And I mean, I kind of go back and forth of really enjoying solitude and privacy, but then also loving to, meet new people and network and kind of, but sometimes I will say, like I was telling Justin, I mean, I've tried starting like a truth community, but nothing happens really. I'm like, I guess nobody cares about the truth around here.
No, once you get the details set up enough, it will just go on its own. It's just a step by step. I want to just, before we go, I'd love to just show you kind of what we're starting with. We're starting with sand, like really shitty sand, and we're putting mulch on it, and then we're adding the compost and the mushrooms and the soil, and we're basically putting in these systems, and it will continue to transform. Right, and so we got aloe and star fruit and sweet potatoes and bananas and avocados, more avocados.
Sugar cane.
Yep, and different cherries and sweet almond. And here's some longans. The longans are coming in nice.
I like longan better than lychee, personally.
Oh yeah, I love them both. We got mangoes coming off the trees and bananas. So. To everybody listening in Florida and everywhere around the world, it's so joyful to plant some food producing trees in your yard. If you have any grass at all, put a fruit tree or a berry bush or something there and then love on it a little bit. And that act of caring for and stewarding the soil and the plant will not only be our best teacher, but it will create such joy and abundance and healing back. It's incredible.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I'm almost inspired. Maybe if we cut this short, I'll switch to my phone and I'll show you what food I'm growing, That's
so cool.
Yeah. At some point I'll take you up, man. I'll bring some trees and we'll go fishing.
Oh, I love it. Man, that would be great. And we've got Airbnbs here too. The community is called Galt's Landing. It's GALTS landing.farm. And we have, we have a kayak here, and then we've got a fishing boat and little dock. So we'll have a blast.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Any closing thoughts? I mean, basically, it's like it's the same thing, man. You're very consistent with solutions, and
yeah, we've got it. I just want just everybody to be happy. I want to thank you, Alex, and everybody listening. Take steps and enjoy the process, and then let what the chips fall where they may. Don't worry about any of that. Just take steps in the right direction and let everything just work its way out.
Well said. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Ciao, brother.
Your infectious positivity. I really appreciate it. And
awesome.
Just a matter of time till we meet in person. So
it sure is. All right, brother.
You were in the area, right? In Newport Richie, I think. I should have tried to connect, right? At that Bigfoot project.
Oh, that was so cool. Yeah. That was really fun. Ryan, what a great guy.
Yeah, so I'm just a little south of there. And
cool.
Yeah, so whether you're around here or what, and something's going to happen. So
absolutely, brother.
Aloha.
Mahalo. Ciao for now.
Peace.